On the morning I turned 28, my mother handed me a gift bag at breakfast. Small, hollow laugh. I actually thought maybe this year she'd surprise me. Pause. But inside the bag wasn't a card. Or cake. It was an eviction notice. Beat. That was the moment I knew I wasn't her daughter anymore. I was just in her way. I stared at the paper in my hands, still creased from being shoved into tissue paper, like it was some kind of present. The bold letters at the top blurred for a second. My name, the date, the deadline. 30 days to move out. It was my birthday. I don't know what expression I made, but I remember my mother sipping her coffee like she hadn't just gutted me with a smile. No apology. No explanation. Just a shrug and the words, "It's time, Everin. You can't live here forever." I should have said something clever or defiant, but the truth was, I was too stunned to speak. I'd been living in that house again for almost 3 years. Not because I wanted to, but because life has a way of knocking you down when you least expect it, and when it does, you crawl back to whatever's left standing. For me, that was the old red brick house on Belridge Street. The same house where I'd grown up, where I'd learned to disappear. My name is Everin Calloway, and if you'd met me before all this, you might have described me as soft-spoken or a little too sensitive. But I like to think I was just paying attention. I noticed things no one else did. The way people looked away before hurting you. The way love started sounding like control. Maybe that's why I ended up studying art therapy, because I understood how emotions can twist themselves into silence. And I wanted to help people untangle that. At the time, I was halfway through my graduate program and working part-time at a community center. Nothing glamorous, but meaningful. The kind of work that kept my spirit just above water. After my fiancé ended things, on the same week I lost my apartment and found out my student loan appeal had been denied. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I packed my paints, my sketchbooks, and the last fragments of my pride, and moved back in with my parents. They said it was temporary. But 3 years later, I was still in the same room I slept in at 16. Same wallpaper, same creaky floorboard. Only now my childhood was suffocating me. My mother, Selena, had a way of pretending to be generous. To the outside world, she was all grace and poise. She volunteered at church, baked for fundraisers, and smiled wide when anyone asked about her children. But inside that house, she was colder than the tiles in January. I don't think she ever forgave me for not turning out like her. She wanted a daughter who wore pearls and married well. Instead, she got a woman who studied emotional trauma and still cried at old movies. My father, Marcel, didn't speak much. He was one of those men who floated along the edges of the family, present but never fully involved. He'd nod at the dinner table, make awkward small talk in passing. But he never once stood up to Selena, not for me, not for anyone. And by now, I knew better than to expect him to start. Then there was Mateo, my younger brother. Golden boy.
Charming. Loud.
He'd just gotten engaged to a woman named Karis, and they were planning a spring wedding. Something extravagant and expensive, probably half-funded by my parents. He had moved out a few months ago, and his old room had already been transformed into a sleek home office for my mom's brand consulting side hustle. Mine, apparently, was next in line for repurposing. I wasn't stupid. I knew I wasn't exactly welcome. But I hadn't expected them to kick me out on my birthday. Not like that. You might be wondering, was I freeloading? Taking advantage?
No.
I wasn't. I paid for groceries when I could. I cooked dinner 4 nights a week. I took my Aunt Morel to her doctor's appointments, helped her manage her meds when her memory started slipping. I babysat Mateo's son when he and Karis wanted to escape for date night, which, somehow, was every Thursday. I was useful, quiet, careful not to take up too much space. But usefulness isn't the same as love. And quietness doesn't mean safety. I can't tell you how many nights I sat in my old room, brushing paint onto canvas, headphones in, just trying to forget the way my mother's words used to land like darts. Maybe if you were more assertive, people would respect you. Your generation is so entitled. You think your feelings are currency. Therapy isn't a real job, Everin. Not for someone like you. I stopped trying to explain myself a long time ago. Still, there was a part of me that had hoped, maybe foolishly, that my birthday would be different. There were no balloons, no cake, just that bag and the rustling sound of tissue paper. And behind it, the eyes of a mother who had already decided I wasn't her responsibility anymore. The worst part? I didn't even cry. I just folded the paper, stood up from the kitchen table, and walked to my room. My father didn't stop me. Mateo didn't text. And my mother, she just called after me. You'll understand when you're a mother someday. But I think I already understood. I understood that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who make you feel the most disposable. I didn't leave that day. Not because I didn't want to, but because I had nowhere else to go. No apartment, no savings, no couch I could crash on without feeling like a burden. I had 30 days. That's what the paper said. 30 days to disappear. But that birthday morning planted something in me. Not anger. Not even sadness. It was clarity. A slow burning, bone-deep realization. They never saw me. Not really. And the only way I'd survive was if I stopped hoping they would. The days that followed were tense in that way only a house filled with secrets can be. My mother acted as if nothing happened. She still asked me to make her tea. Still left sticky notes on the fridge with little chores scribbled in her precise cursive. Pick up Morel's prescription. Prep the chili for Sunday. As if she hadn't served me an eviction notice wrapped in tissue paper. I did it all. Quietly. Efficiently. But inside I was watching. Noticing. And something didn't sit right. One evening, about a week after the birthday ambush, I overheard something in the hallway. My mother was on the phone. Her voice was hushed but clipped, sharp in that way that always meant she was saying something cruel. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the door was cracked open and her words sliced through the air like a blade. She's emotionally unstable, Karis. You know how artists are dramatic, irresponsible. She's just never fit in.
Karis.
My brother's fiancé. I stepped back like I'd touched fire.
Why was she talking to Karis about me?
That night, something broke open in me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. I just kept replaying her tone, the ease with which she dismissed me. I wasn't just being kicked out. I was being erased.
But why? Why now?
I'd lived in that house for nearly 3 years, and while I knew I wasn't their shining child, I was at least tolerated. What changed? A few days later, I found out. It started with a slip-up. I was babysitting Mateo's son, my nephew, Ollie, while he and Karis were out doing wedding errands. He was drawing at the kitchen table, his chubby fingers wrapped around my colored pencils, and I was washing dishes when he said something that made me freeze. Mommy says you don't like people because your brain is broken. I turned around slowly. Excuse me, sweetheart. Ollie didn't even look up. He was focused on drawing a lopsided dinosaur. She said you were in that school forever 'cause you couldn't handle real jobs. And that grandmommy's tired of babysitting you. I crouched beside him, trying not to let my voice shake. Did Mommy say that to you? He nodded, simple and innocent. Then he whispered, like it was a secret. She said if you move out, they can give your room to the baby. The baby? What baby? I felt something cold settle in my stomach. That night, I stayed up researching rental listings I couldn't afford, while the gears in my mind turned endlessly. Why was Karis so involved in this? The next day, I got my answer. Or at least part of it. I overheard Mateo in the backyard on a call. He didn't know I was outside, just around the corner on the side steps hidden by the hedge. I wasn't trying to spy. I was just listening. No, she doesn't know yet. But once she's out, it'll be easier to list. I froze. Yeah, Mom's giving us her room. We're going to convert it. It's a decent size and the light's better for the nursery. I nearly dropped my mug. My brother, my own brother, was planning to move into my room with his new wife and baby. And they'd already made the decision. Not once did anyone talk to me, ask me, warn me. They weren't just pushing me out, they were replacing me. I didn't confront him that day. I couldn't trust myself not to scream. Instead, I went back inside and started gathering small things.
Keepsakes.
Sketches. My old journals. Anything that mattered. Because I knew I couldn't stay. But if they thought I'd go quietly, they didn't know me at all. About a week before my move-out deadline, something strange happened. I got a letter in the mail, addressed to me, but written in my Aunt Morel's handwriting. She lived with us part-time, in a small upstairs room, and was often treated like an afterthought. The letter was short. Just one page. Evren, I heard what they're doing to you. I want you to know I've seen it. I've always seen it. What they do. How they twist things to suit themselves. I've kept quiet for years. But there are things you don't know. About the house. About your father's accounts. About why your mother's so desperate for you to leave. If you want the truth, ask me when they're all gone next Sunday. I'll be waiting in the sunroom. Love, Morel. I read it twice. Then a third time.
Something was going on.
Something deeper than just family tension or bad blood. My mother's coldness. Mateo's smugness. Karis' comments. It all pointed to something beneath the surface. I waited until Sunday. That morning, the rest of the family left for brunch, one of those charity events Selena loved to show off at. I stayed behind, pretending to have a migraine. When the house was finally quiet, I went to the sunroom. Morel was there, sitting in her worn armchair, knitting like always. But her eyes, usually clouded and slow, were sharp.
She didn't waste time.
Your father's been hiding assets, she said plainly, under your mother's name, and they've been trying to downsize without alerting the IRS. I blinked. What? She gestured to a box beside her. Inside were old financial statements, scans of emails, even a flash drive. Your name was tied to one of the utility accounts, she said. They used it to route payments through a fake business. I don't think you even knew.
I didn't.
But it explained a lot. Why I'd been getting strange mail. Why a tax form had arrived with my name on it for a business I'd never heard of. They want you out, she said softly, because if anyone looks into this, they need you far away. Discredited. Disconnected. I sat down hard. My knees buckled. They hadn't just stopped loving me. They were covering themselves, using me as a shield. Selena, the respectable mother. Marcel, the invisible man. And Mateo, the golden child with his new life built on the ashes of mine. They didn't care where I landed, as long as it wasn't here. But here's the thing. I may have been soft, but I wasn't stupid. And I was done playing the quiet daughter. They gave me 30 days. But on the last one, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I smiled. And I gave them something they never saw coming. The night before I was supposed to leave, I didn't sleep. I lay on my mattress, stripped bare of sheets, staring at the cracked ceiling I'd known since childhood. The room was almost empty now, just a few labeled boxes, a suitcase, and my sketch portfolio. Even the faint outline of posters I'd once taped to the walls had faded like memories I wasn't sure were ever mine. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't angry. I felt clean. Hollowed out, maybe, but clear. The kind of clarity that comes when you have absolutely nothing left to lose. By noon, the house was buzzing with artificial cheer. My mother was in the kitchen, humming a hymn as she kneaded dough, already acting like the house was hers again, uninterrupted. My father sat in his usual recliner, pretending to read the newspaper he hadn't actually flipped in 20 minutes. Mateo and Karis had stopped by to help me move, though really they just stood around waiting to see me off like I was the family's final unpaid bill. My things were loaded into my friend Isolde's car. She didn't ask questions, just held my hand for a second longer than usual and mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't leaving just yet. I walked back inside and called a little family meeting. They gathered in the living room, annoyed and curious. My mother wiped her hands on a towel and frowned like I was wasting her time. Karis perched on the edge of the armrest like she belonged there. Mateo crossed his arms. "What is it, Evren?" Selena asked, sharp and exasperated. "We've all got things to do." I nodded slowly. "I just wanted to say, thank you." That got their attention. "Thank you," I repeated, "for finally showing me who you are. All of you." I opened my sketch portfolio and pulled out a brown envelope. I handed it to my mother. She hesitated. "What's this?"
A gift.
"For the baby," I said softly. "Since you're so excited about redecorating the nursery." Karis snatched it from her and opened it. Her face changed the second she saw what was inside. A printed packet of bank statements, an itemized list of financial discrepancies, tax filings, and at the bottom, an unsigned letter, "To whom it may concern. The following documentation includes evidence of financial misrepresentation, tax evasion, and identity misuse concerning one Everin Calloway. My identity was fraudulently linked to accounts I had no access to or control over, used to launder family assets through a falsified home business registered under my mother's name, Selena Calloway. I am willing to testify if necessary." Mateo's face turned white. My father dropped the paper he was pretending to read. My mother stood frozen. "I thought you were just an emotional mess," Karis muttered, flipping through the pages. "You're not seriously planning to go to the police." "I already have," I said calmly. "But that's not where this ends." I reached into the bag and pulled out a small flash drive. "See, Aunt Morell didn't just give me these documents. She gave me voice recordings, conversations, screenshots of emails, some dated as far back as 10 years. You'd be amazed at what she's been collecting." "You little snake," Selena snapped. "You think this will hold up? We did what we had to do to protect this family." "No," I cut in. "You did what you had to do to protect your control. And I'm not your shield anymore." I looked at my father, who hadn't said a word. "Dad," I said, softer now, "do you even know what's in those documents?" He looked at me and I saw, for the first time, shame. Real shame. And it wasn't enough. My mother lunged forward like she was going to grab the folder back, but I stepped aside. "It's too late," I said. "Everything's backed up. Copies have been sent to a lawyer, to the IRS Fraud Division, and 2 reporters. I'm not trying to ruin anyone's life, but I'm not going to prison for you." She froze, breathing heavily. "You're bluffing." I smiled. "Try me." The silence that followed was delicious. Thick. Beautifully ugly. Karis was the first to speak. "You've always been dramatic. Why couldn't you just leave quietly? You're so self-righteous." "And you," I turned on her, "you played your part perfectly. Poisoned my nephew against me. Mocked my mental health behind closed doors. But you're going to be a mother now, right? So let me ask you something." I stepped closer. "What would you do if someone tried to turn your child into a scapegoat for their mistakes?" She looked away, and for the first time, I saw a crack in her perfect little facade. I turned to Mateo next. "You were my brother, my friend. When I came home crying after Damon left me, you stayed up with me, remember? You said I was the strongest person you knew. Was that a lie too?" His face twitched. "I didn't want this to happen like this," he muttered. "No," I said. "You just didn't want to be uncomfortable. You want a house, a nursery, a life. And you were willing to trade your sister to get it." He didn't answer. I looked back at my mother. I used to think if I just worked hard enough, helped enough, stayed quiet enough, you'd finally love me the way I needed.
But you don't love me.
You love control. And now you're losing it." She was trembling, whether from rage or fear, I couldn't tell. But I'd never seen her like that. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of her. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. I paused, hand on the knob. "One more thing," I said, turning back. "I won't press charges. Not unless you try to retaliate. But I've documented everything. And you'll never use my name again. Not to cover your crimes. Not to shame me. Not to rewrite the story." Then I smiled. The same smile they gave me when they handed me that eviction notice. Empty.
Polite. Deadly.
I'm free now. And then I walked out. The air outside tasted different. Lighter. I got into Isolde's car, and we drove away. I didn't cry. Didn't look back. I was heading into the unknown. I had no apartment, no job lined up, just a few freelance gigs and a savings account that would last me maybe 2 months. But I had something I'd never had before.
Power.
Not over them. Over me. 3 months later, I was living in a studio apartment with chipped paint and loud neighbors. But it was mine. I'd picked up clients through an online art therapy collective and started teaching weekend workshops at a nonprofit. The money was small but steady.
I was building something.
Morel stayed in touch. Quietly. She sent me updates sometimes. Selena was trying to sell the house, but the paperwork kept mysteriously stalling. Mateo and Karis had delayed the wedding. Something about finances and bad timing. And my mother? She sent me a birthday card. No money. No note. Just a blank card. Empty. Just like her version of love. I pinned it to my corkboard above my desk as a reminder. That smile I gave them wasn't revenge. It was a eulogy for the version of me they thought would never fight back. And I meant it. I'm not coming back. Not for holidays. Not for apologies. I'm building a new life. One brushstroke at a time. They say some wounds never close. I used to believe that. I thought the hurt you carry from family digs so deep, it changes the shape of you. And maybe it does. Maybe I'm not the same person I was when I first walked back into that house 3 years ago, limping through the wreckage of a breakup, credit card debt, and the kind of grief that chews through your ability to speak. But something changed after I left. The silence started to heal me. It came in small ways first. I no longer flinched when my phone rang, fearing it was my mother demanding something or my brother guilting me. I could walk into a grocery store and buy almond milk instead of that ultra-pasteurized brand Selena insisted on. I began eating dinner at midnight sometimes, barefoot on my kitchen tiles, with jazz humming in the background and no one demanding to know why I wasn't on a proper schedule. I was poor, but I was free. That kind of poverty is easier to survive. The hardest part? Learning to believe myself. I don't mean trusting myself. I mean believing my own memories. My own version of things. You spend long enough around gaslighters, and suddenly your whole past becomes unreliable. You begin to ask, did I really overreact? Was I too sensitive? Maybe she didn't mean it like that. But one evening, 2 months after I left, I opened an old sketchbook, one I hadn't touched since grad school. And I found a drawing, a quick sketch of myself, scribbled in charcoal. Slouched shoulders, downcast eyes, hands clenched into fists so tight they were trembling. Underneath it, I'd written just one line. They make me small. I stared at that version of myself for a long time. She wasn't a liar. She was trying to survive. My therapist, yes, I finally found one who gets me, calls it narrative reclamation. I call it rewriting the gospel, because my family had a version of the story, that I was delicate, unreliable, ungrateful, that I needed to be managed, hidden, corrected. But now I know the truth. I was never weak. I was never broken. I was inconvenient. And in that house, inconvenient women are treated like problems to be removed. I started writing a memoir, quietly, just notes at first, then full paragraphs, then whole chapters. I called it The Smile I Gave Them. It's not for revenge. It's not a tell-all. It's a record. A lighthouse for women like me, daughters, sisters, nieces, who were made to feel like squatters in their own homes. One night in January, I received a package. No return label. Inside was a photo album. Old, worn at the edges. Our family pictures. Christmases, birthdays, graduations. Tucked inside was a sticky note in unfamiliar handwriting. I'm sorry. I didn't know how much you held.
Al.
It took me 2 days to figure out who L was.
Levi.
My cousin. Morel's son. He'd always been quiet at gatherings. Listened more than he spoke. He must have found my address through his mom. Or maybe through the article. Because, yes, the article. A local columnist ran a piece after I testified in a financial exploitation case last fall. She didn't use names, but she quoted my exact phrase.